The West Coast versus East Coast hip-hop rivalry was a feud between fans and artists from the mid to late 1990s. Focal points of the feud were West Coast rapper Tupac Shakur and East Coast rapper the Notorious B.I.G., as well as the record company Bad Boy and Death Row. Biggie first set the fire with his diss songs to Tupac, and Tupac then set the fire back, which then led to a necessary rivalry. Biggie and Tupac could have resolved the situation, but due to the media and fans and wanting respect, they could have not.
Big sight, new, Hank, go, big yeah. Y'all know how this shit go, you know. All eyes on me, motherfucker. Roll up in the club and shit. All eyes on me. All eyes on me.
The main artist of the West Coast was born as Tupac Amaru Shakur, also known as Tupac or Pac or Machiavelli. Tupac was born in Manhattan, New York. He then moved in Marin City, California when he was 17. Tupac's entertainment career began in 1990. He first started out as a backup dancer alternative hip-hop group called Digital Underground. He was in the first movie called Juice in 1992, as well as his 3 other movies called Bullet, Above the Rim, and Poetic Justice. In late 1993, Shakur formed the group Thug Life with a number of his friends, including Big Sky, his older stepbrother Marbury Shakur, and Rated R. In 1993, Shakur and others were charged with abusing a woman in a hotel room. The group released their own record album, Thug Life, Volume 1, on September 26, 1994, which went gold. On February 6, 1995, he was sentenced to 1.5 to 4 years and a half in prison on a sexual assault charge. Shortly afterwards, he released his multi-platinum album, Me Against the World. Tupac is the only artist ever to have an album at number 1 on the Billboard while serving a prison sentence. After he was released from Clinton Correctional Facility, Shakur went back to song recording. He began a new group called Outlaw Immortals. Tupac began recording his first album with Death Row and released the single California Love soon after. On February 13, 1994, Tupac released his 4th solo album, All Eyes on Me. This double album was first and second of his 3rd album, Committed to Death Row Record, and it sold over 9 million copies.
To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. And all the niggas in the struggle, you know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Marley Marl. I let my tape rock till my tape pop, smoking weed and bamboo, sipping on private.
The main artist of the East Coast was born as Christopher Wallace, also known as Biggie Smalls and the Notorious B.I.G. Biggie was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He began selling drugs at 12 while attending school. Biggie stepped it up the drug dealing after quitting school at age 17 and was soon in trouble with the law. He received a 5-year probationary sentence in 1989 after being arrested on weapon possession charge. In 1991, he was charged with dealing with drugs in North Carolina and reportedly spent 9 months in jail while awaiting to make bail. Biggie began rapping as a teenager to entertain people in his neighborhood. After he got out of jail, he made a demo tape as Biggie Smalls, and the tapes were then passed around and played at local radio stations in New York. A producer by the name Sean Combs, also known as Puff Daddy, and P. Diddy heard Biggie's early tapes. Diddy went to sign Biggie to his new label, Bad Boy Records. Diddy and Biggie worked on his first album, and the Notorious B.I.G. was born. Biggie had released his first solo as a song called Juicy in 1994. Biggie's first album was released in 1994 titled Ready to Die. The album was certified 4 times platinum and reached number 13 on the Billboard charts, and was also named MC of the Year at the 1994 Billboard Music Awards. In August 1995, Biggie took charge of the group Junior Mafia, released their album called Conspiracy. The group consisted of his friends from childhood and included rappers such as Lil' Kim and Lil' Cease. The record went gold. Biggie was involved in a car accident that shattered his left leg and temporarily confined him to a wheelchair. The injury forced him to use a cane. Long afterwards, Biggie created his second album called Life After Death, which was released on March 25, 1997. It sold 700,000 hard copies, almost immediately jumping from number 176 to number 1 on the Billboard in a week.
And my other homies out here like Spike Lee, they got the camera on the nigga, guess they like me. But now I'm about to pass this motherfucker on, cause this Tangeray is getting hella strong.
Money, hoes, and clothes. Blood smoke coming out the nose is all a nigga knows. Flipping on foes, putting tags on toes, watching the stash grow, clocking the cash.
Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls met each other in 1993, and the two became friends. Tupac supported Biggie and was often giving him advice. However, their friendship turned into the most violent era for hip-hop music on November 30, 1994. While Biggie and Puffy were at a recording session at Quan Recording Studios in Manhattan, Tupac went there to record with another rapper for his third studio album, Me Against the World. At the same time, but in the lobby, Tupac was held at a gunpoint and robbed it at $400 worth of jewelry. Tupac was shot 5 times. Biggie rushed it down just as time to see Tupac being loaded into an ambulance. Extending a middle finger, Pac blamed Biggie for the shooting and said that Biggie knew about it and failed to warn him. Biggie dropped the track Who Shot Ya?, which Tupac took as a diss song mocking his shooting. This sparkled the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. Tupac later recovered from his injury and then made a diss song called Hit 'Em Up, featuring his group The Outlaws. The song lyrics contain vicious insults to several East Coast rappers, but mostly towards Biggie. During this encounter, Biggie admits that he was scared for his life. Biggie never responds to any of Tupac's diss. Tupac attacked Biggie in every way he could, even starting rumors that he had a love affair between him and Biggie's wife, Faith Evans. Both the rappers became rebels. Later, the entire country became divided into 2 groups, the West Side and the East Side, which became Death Row Records versus Bad Boy Records, and Tupac versus Biggie.
The East Coast and the West Coast started when we went out to New York to do the Source Awards. And Mr. Knight went on stage, and he's in New York City, and we all know Puffy's from New York City.
Any artists out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
I mean, the whole crowd started booing, and then I thought to myself, like, why would you do that?
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us. Y'all don't love us. Well, let it be known then. We know y'all East Coast. We know we at East. Son.
Niggas shot me 5 times. I came out of jail and sold 5 million. The niggas can't fuck with us. That fat fuck only sold 2 million. Yeah. When they got that portrayal of being, first they tough, then something happened to them, they turn to God. Then when everything's cool, they tough again. I don't understand it. It gets real confusing to me. So I just said, I'm just gonna listen to me and dream out there. Die slow but calm. Recognize my face, so there won't be no mistakes. So you know where to tell.
West side, bad boy killers. You know who the realest is, niggas. We bring it to you. First off, fuck your bitch in the clique you claim. West side, when we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. We bust on bad boys, niggas fuck for life. Plus, Puffy tryna see me weak, hearts I rip. Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia, some mark ass bitches. We keep on coming while we running for your Jews. Steady gunning, keep on busting at the fools.
Since the whole country divided into two and had conflict, it unfortunately became very real on September 7th, 1996. Tupac was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting off the Los Angeles Strip after he left a fight was involved inside the MGM Grand Hotel after a Mike Tyson box match. He died 6 days later on September 13, 1996, as a result of those gunshots wound at the age of 25. The case is still unsolved. Biggie was scared for his life, but he wanted to put an end to the rivalry between the two coasts. Biggie went to the West Coast for several events to support his next released album, Life After Death, but also to make a statement that the rivalry was over. On September 7, 1997, he attended the Soul Train Music Awards and went to the after party hosted by the Vibe magazine and Quest Records. On March 9th, Biggie was sitting in an SUV on the streets. He was shot multiple times by unknown assassinate. He died almost instantly. Biggie was only 24 years old. Hip-hop faced its greatest tragedy when both Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. were killed.
Time, and I just want to thank y'all for coming out. As soon as I called these brothers, they was like, we there. They understood the importance of this show for hip-hop.
The conflict was the West Coast versus East Coast hip-hop rivalry between the artists and fans from the mid to late 1990s. The compromise was the main artist's death led to society moved it on about the rivalry. Snoop Dogg also tried to end the West Coast versus East Coast rap violence by holding a town hall meeting Sunday with LA's gang members. Also performing with Diddy and Dr. Dre to show that the artist gets along and no more rivalry. The impact Tupac had on society was a portrait lifestyle everyone wanted to have. He had everyone respect in the music industry. His fans looked up to him, and he had someone there to support him. Closing with his image on it or a quote of a song is still being used, and his music is still being downloaded. Nobody had forgotten this influential poet because he was such a huge impact on a lot of people. Tupac music plays a big role in pop culture. He sang about the troubles of growing up with a single parent, having to go through racism every day. The impact Biggie had on society was different compared to Tupac. He wasn't thugged out or thug life, hardcore because he wasn't down for killing. He had approached his stories more through metaphor and imagery. The bulk of Biggie's best track all dove deep into depression, suicide, paranormal, anxiety, companionship, and sensuality. All of these issues are often ignored issues in lives of men and hip-hop. Biggie's music also play a big role in pop culture. They also made closing with his image or quote, and music is still being downloaded. Both Biggie and Tupac became a living symbol of their generation.